My name is Liam Fuller. I am here interviewing Lindsay Snowden. And why don't I start with what are your preferred gender pronouns?
It's kind of gender neutral.
Okay,
I
so
just prefer Lindsay.
Lindsay?
Yes. However, I'm not offended if someone's like sir,
Okay.
or it's really awkward when someone says miss, but
Okay.
you know, I don't like jump down anyone's throat. I just prefer to be gender neutral. Lindsay.
Okay.
Sir Beauty, Serb.
So we're in Lindsay's home in Harrisburg. And today is the 22nd of March 2015. And Lindsay Snowden is spelt LindsaySnowden.
Forgot the N. S-N-O-W-D-E-N.
S-N. Oh, sorry. And do you consent to this interview?
Yes.
So let's start with your sort of family origin, early development.
What would you like to know about it? I could tell you.
Just sort of the context you grew up in.
Basically, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My grandmother raised me for the first 10 years of my life. Then I moved with my mother. 2 sisters, 1 brother. Kind of grew up in kind of a community, sort of, well, it was just considered townhomes and it went into projects type of thing. But pretty good childhood, I had a lot of fun with it. We had some, battles to get through, but all in all, it turned out good. I'm here now.
Okay. And how was sort of your early development in relation to your sexuality?
Well, my early development was that I played games with girls, show me yours, show you mine, little touchy-feely things. But I just chopped it up to just experimentation, nothing new. That's pretty much it. My first contact was with a girl. Everything was with a girl. But I guess around 10, probably closer to 11, 12, I started going into the whole, girls are with boys. Even though I have gay members in my family, I didn't see anything wrong with it. Just like, no, and I started, basically going more towards boys than girls.
And so we're going to kind of proceed. And could you tell me a little bit about your educational background?
Well, I am a nurse by trade, licensed practical nurse. I also have a degree in web and graphic design. Military background. Was an Army nurse. Did that for 9 years. Military for 9 years. I've now been a nurse for 18, going on 19 years. No, actually 19 years, I think. I've been a nurse. I guess that's pretty much it. Everything else is self-taught. I do contract work on the side. It's kind of self-taught, worked under a contractor, so kitchens, bathrooms, things like that.
And then can you kind of sort of go more in depth in your work history?
Okay, in depth in my work history. Started working a job when I was 10. Cleaned a convenience store my mother worked at. So I used to go and basically clean it up, stock the shelves. My mom, stepdad would pay me. My mom got married when I was 10 also. Her and my stepdad would pay me. Did that for a while. My mom taught me the value of a dollar and how you need to always learn how to stretch your money because we didn't have a whole lot of money. So she always taught me that it's better to, when you get money, to be able to flip your money over so that you have more money as opposed to taking it and spending it. So what that means is start off with, basically she got me a dollar box of like jelly rolls, ho-ho cakes, stuff like that. Told me how, pull them out, sell them, quarter each. You basically triple your money. So I did that for years, went into ice cream, and kept doing things like that until I was actually able to get a job where I actually get a paycheck. So I've been getting a paycheck since I was 14. Started working in a school work program where I cleaned schools through the summer. 16 worked at fast food. 17 joined the military. Went from the military into nursing.
Okay, so you're a little tycoon.
Yeah, I mean, nursing, contract work, entrepreneur stuff. I mean, I've always had my entrepreneurial spirit because it's been embedded in me since I was a kid. So also came here, worked, got a stand at one of the markets, selling oils, incense, lotions, soaps, creams, all types of stuff like that. Did a few of the, what would they be called, basically? Like prepaid legal and services like that and associates. So did some things with that. Equinox, Amway, like that's pretty much done it all. As I grew, I just learned I could do a lot of different things. So a few years ago, I decided when we decided to start a magazine, probably skipping ahead, but when we decided to start the magazine and stuff, I'm like, I think I could do this. So I started messing with computers, and I decided, well, why not get a degree in web and graphic design? Built my own websites, lay out my own magazines, do it all myself. So I went to school, got a degree in web and graphic design to control both of my wife's website as well as our business website. Then was like, I'm always building stuff around the house, build a lot. Why not see if I could work in houses and build stuff? Found a contractor, basically got underneath him, started putting in kitchens and bathrooms and revamping houses and putting all the new stuff in new builds and stuff like that. All while I'm still being a nurse.
Wow.
So that's what I do.
So did you mention something about like legal?
It's prepaid. It was called Prepaid Legal. It's now called Legal Shield. I was an independent associate for them, which basically was you offered. It's basically insurance. Like, you know, you have car insurance in case you get into an accident. Well, basically you have lawyers in case you need one. You know, which most of us do. We just don't know we do.
Yeah.
I mean, something as simple as just kind of signing a lease, signing a rental agreement, buying a car. Most of us just do it. We read it, we sign it because it's very expensive. But with them, it was a company I would like to give it to people who, you know, basically in my community, like, look, you do have access to an attorney. You don't have to have all this money. You pay a monthly fee. You have the best lawyers there are. Like, it's not just Joe Schmo. It's like the best attorneys for just like a monthly fee. So I did that. I was really passionate about that, you know, so still am. But that was pretty much it. That's
cool.
legal. Mm-hmm.
So can you kind of talk about sort of your coming out experience?
My coming out experience was, I was 19, 20. I was 20. I really didn't know. Like I said, I had my fill-ups with girls, and I found I was attracted to girls, but I thought it was just friendship. I was like, I just want to be her friend, you know. I never saw it as anything other than that. Until I was like 20, I was working. Oh, something else I did. I was kind of bored, didn't have anything to do, didn't want to really hang out as much, so I took a job with a detective agency, which is basically they provide security for colleges. And so I was doing that, but no, that's a lie. That was shortly after that. I lied. I was actually recruiting still for the Army, because right after this I went into that. I was actually recruiting in Pittsburgh for the Army, working at a recruiting station, and I saw this female in a store. We were getting lunch or something, and I don't know, something, I looked at her, I was like, I like her boots. The guys were like, basically, well, why don't you tell her? I'm like, oh no, she might think I'm gay or I like her. I'm like, I wouldn't do that. And they're like, well, you kind of jumped to that conclusion real fast. Why would she think you're gay? Because you said you like her boots. I'm like, I don't know. Kind of look at her. I don't know. She might. Anyway, we go back to the office. I get a phone call. They're like, Sergeant Snowden, there's a call online for you. I get on. The girl says, hey, I just saw you I can't remember where it was. I just saw you wherever we were. and wanted to know if I could take you out. I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, oh, you're the girl, you had that red eagle, you da-da-da. She's like, oh, so you noticed me. I'm like, oh, no, I liked your car and I liked your boots. I mean, she's like, well, I want to know if I could take you out. I'm like, no, I'm not gay. I'm engaged. I'm getting married. She's like, no, you really are. I'm like, no, I'm really not. So the guys say, go out with her. She says, well, if you go have drinks with me, I have some names I could give you guys who are looking to go into the military. Guys say, go out, get the names. I'm like, really, you guys, you're like, you pimp me to the guys, you're pimping me to the girls. Like, are you guys serious? They're like, just get the names, bring them back to us. I go home, I find myself getting dressed to meet her. I'm like changing clothes. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why are you changing your clothes so much? Who cares? You don't like her. I go out with her, hang out with her for a while. She kissed me. I liked it. The rest was history. Called off my engagement and been dating women since.
Can you talk about a little about your engagement that you had before that?
Really nice guy. Someone I dated for a while. We broke up, got back together, had a lot in common. We got engaged. We were going to get married. I thought it was going to really work out, and I just realized I was gay. That is truly the only reason that it didn't work out. I'm just like, I know I love you, but I started realizing I think I just really love you as a person, because once I realized that I had the feelings with the girl, it wasn't the same between he and I. Like, I didn't tell him for like 2 days, but because I was trying to work some things out within myself, and I'm just like, let's try to go back to norm. But it wasn't the same. The intimacy, the hugging, it wasn't the same. It just more or less felt like my buddy. It no longer was romantic, and immediately it's like a flash of my life just went across, and I was like, wow, this explains so much. I've always liked girls. I just never realized it until the right girl pulled me out and made me realize it. But she didn't make me, she just brought it to my attention, like, yeah, you really do. And I've been like that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, just the sort of lack of language we have surrounding these identities, how we even know they're even a possibility.
Right. I definitely agree with that. I think I was just having a talk earlier with my wife, and I'm like, I think the reason why I was with guys is because it felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. Even though my family, I was brought up in a very open family. Like, they don't really care what you do. But with seeing, oh, okay, my mom's married to a guy. I know I have gay cousins, but everybody else seems to have, guys and girls go together. My religious background always said, you do not, date the same sex. Homosexuality is a sin. I was brought up Baptist. And I would always challenge it, like, I don't believe that. I said, and I always used to use my cousin. I'd be like, I don't believe my cousin's going to go to hell because she's gay. I was like, I'm not. However, I don't think she's going to. But it still sits in your mind. Like, it's still there. Like, what if you're wrong? What if it is wrong? So I don't think I just ever thought about being with women. It just was like, it was an experimental thing when you were a kid. That's it. You like guys, you date guys. Part of the challenge when I caught off my engagement was I asked myself a question after being with a woman, because kids just lead to other things, but nevertheless, after being with a woman, I said to myself, I'm like, okay, what is it about this? Like, is it just an experimentation thing? Did you just want to know? And I said, like, I could really say with all honesty, I could go without ever being with another man, but I couldn't do it. I could not, after crossing this line, go without ever being with a woman. And it helped me with my decision.
So can you talk about how sort of your family reacted?
I went to my mother first. Told my mom, like, hey, met this girl. I like her. No, I kind of like her, like, kind of dating her. My mom's like, oh, well, I just want you to know it's a hard life. I'm like, what? She's like, it's a hard life. She's like, and I thought you were gay since you were 5, so it's not like, I kind of thought that. I was like, but you say it's a hard life as if you know, and she just looks at me. I said, I kind of had a hunch that you've messed with women before too. So my mom as well. So that's how that went. The rest of my family just kept saying, we're kind of glad you came out the closet. I'm like, I was never in the closet. I said, wasn't hiding around. I wasn't sneaking dating girls. I didn't know, like I'm telling you guys. And they're like, no, we've kind of known you were gay for a long time. They're like, we knew. We were just waiting on you to know. That was my coming out experience. Is everybody, I was like trying to come with this shock. I'm like, hey, I called some friends from high school. Like this one guy who I was really good friends with, who I thought was gay, but he was dating a girl, and I'm sure he may have thought I was gay. So I call him. I'm like, hey, you're not going to believe this. I'm gay. I just realized I like girls. And he's like, oh, cool. I have a boyfriend. I'm like, oh, wow. So this is what I've done. Every time I told someone, they're like, yeah, we knew. All but my best friend. Who she's just like, I thought you had big news to tell me. Like, that's kind of could have happened after I got done. So I rush over her house. She's taking a bath. I'm like, I got to tell you something. Hurry up, get out the tub, get dressed. We need to go for a drive. She's like, what's wrong? I'm like, it's really important. I just really, tell her. She's like, you couldn't have told me that after my bath. She tells her family. She said her family all said, seriously, you didn't know? So it wasn't as exciting as I wanted it to be. I wanted to hear, like, I wanted some of them stories. I'm like, guess what? Everybody be shocked. No one was. Not a
So just sort of rolling back to clarify, did you say your mom knew you messed around with girls, or did she mess around with girls?
My mom did.
Okay.
My mom goes in and out of the life. Like, she goes in and out of life, pretty much. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
She goes in and out to life. I mean, everybody, my family and all them, that she just does.
And you mentioned how it turns out your best friend in high school was also, or a good friend in high school was also gay. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting how we sort of find each other.
Right, and it's crazy because I was so interested. He worked at a clothing store, and he taught me how to tie ties. I don't know, I was just very interested in tying ties. I was like, how do you tie ties? Which is so great now, because I can tie a tie, because I wear a lot of them. But yeah, he was. And people used to say it, and I'm like, no, he has a girlfriend. He's not gay. Like, no. Turns out we both were. Go figure.
And can you sort of talk about sort of the adult family that you formed today? Marriage, children, grandchildren, current family?
I mean, as far as what I see for me?
Or just right now, maybe the future?
Well, I'm married. I hope to have kids in the future. Just don't know whether they're going to be biological, adopted. I don't know yet. Everybody else, just my friends, are all my family. But I see like just a small nucleus, just me, my wife, a couple kids, and then all of the friends that have now become our family. That's pretty much it. And our godchildren, that's the gist of it.
So how long have you been married?
I've been married, it'll be 2 years in August. You ever feel like your face being burnt on one side when you get asked a question like that? You're like, it should be real quick. Yeah, it'll be 2 years in August. We got married in London, Ontario.
So can you talk about sort of your experience in the military?
Oh, yeah, well, I would say I would still be into this day had it not been for my sexuality. What happened was I didn't actually have any problems per se. Like some people who knew me, they knew. Wasn't that big of a deal. They've hung out with me afterwards. No one really cared. When I was in Pittsburgh, no one really cared. It didn't actually become an issue until I was up here. I was in Harrisburg for, let me see, about 3 years in, you kind of, I guess people just, I don't know, kind of get attracted to other people. You just get, it's just people you know. You're like, okay, I want to hang with this group of people. So we had that in my unit. I was a reservist. So in my unit, my medical unit, there was a few of us that used to sit together, hang together, go to lunch together. And we were all lesbians. And people started leaving the unit slowly but surely. And I'm like, why is all like the people I'm cool with? They're like, yeah, this unit's not right. You know, it's not cool. I'm going to another unit. And I'm like, why? And they're like, cause I think they're picking with me simply because of my sexuality, even though it's don't ask, don't tell. So no one really actually kind of asked you, but you could just tell, you could feel a sense of things. I'm like, well, I don't know, I'm not having any problems. No one said anything to me. I was training some of the new troops that was coming in that were pretty basic. I'm like, I know I'm pretty good. So then everybody was gone. It was just me left. And I'm like, okay, it's different. And I came into drill one day, and a lieutenant said to me, I noticed you have this little rainbow swirl on your car. Doesn't that mean you're gay? And I said, I thought it was don't ask, don't tell. Like, why are you asking? And she was like, I'm not. I was just asking about the swirl. I'm just like, okay. I never answered her. So, and I started noticing things. I'm like, you know what? I can't afford that the last 9 years of my life be wiped out behind a dishonorable discharge because someone wants to investigate whether I'm a lesbian or not. I was like, which is very easy for, I mean, I live with my partner at the time. Like, I can't do it. So I asked to be released and be discharged based on that. I got my discharge papers. Never wanted to be in the military since I was 12, but I couldn't risk a dishonorable discharge.
So
that was in 2002.
Okay. So the unit was based here?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it has anything to do with sort of the context of the area?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, because out in Pittsburgh, no one really asked. They didn't care. You kind of get a sense for like who isn't. Some people you may see out at times, but no one really cared. This wasn't that big of a deal in that unit. It wasn't a big a deal when I was in New Jersey, when I was stationed down there. You know, I was just cool. Me and the guys, we hung out. Fort Indian Town Gap. It was simply here, right? Dead smack in Harrisburg.
And so, is there anything more you'd like to say about Don't Ask, Don't Tell, or do you think you covered everything?
I just think it was ridiculous. It's don't ask, don't tell, but that's not true, because the thing about that is that I'm glad it's gone. Let me just put it that way. But the flip side of that is that it's don't ask, don't tell. But if somebody suspects you may be and can have some proof, they can launch an investigation. If you were shown to be, then you'd be dishonorably discharged. So really was no protection in that area. Like, I won't ask you, but I'm going to assume, so I'm going to get you investigated, you know?
And do you think the sort of aftermath of Don't Ask, Don't Tell is positive?
You mean with it being gone?
Yeah, with it being gone.
Oh, 100%. 100%. So much so that I went to try to re-enlist. Problem is, I've been out so long that I have to drop a rank, and I was just like, I put in time for my rank. I'm not dropping back down. So that was it. And I talked to other military people who were ecstatic about it being gone. You could just live free. You get all the benefits. It's just the same as everyone else. Like, why shouldn't you? You're married. Why shouldn't you get housing too? But not only did you not get the housing, couldn't even tell you were married. But for fear of actually losing your job, but not just losing a job, but getting out dishonorable discharge, which kind of puts a black mark on you forever. So, yes, it's very positive. Would it be a good one?
And can you sort of talk about your sort of organizational affiliation? So maybe, let me just see, any sort of, any things like that.
Well, I'm a member of the LGBT Center
Yeah.
down in Harrisburg. I had a drag king troupe, which was great. It was one of the first all-black drag king troupes here in Harrisburg. There weren't any. I wanted to basically do drag king stuff, and I found it was really hard. No one would like book me. I couldn't get in. They're like, oh, I'm like, well, how do you break into this industry if no one will let you? So there was a pageant coming in up, which anyone could be a part of. I decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and be in the pageant. Never did drag, never did the pageant. Got a good response. Got the club to let me go like a couple times to come perform a couple times. But while I'm like, there's no, like, where are all the black drag kings? I know they're in other cities. I see them, like, where are they? And I see that it was some of the same problems. So I was like, well, if you can't get in, make your own. So I made my own troupe. My wife and myself, and this was close to, like, my magazine and stuff came over it, but we decided, like, what we'll do is we'll get the club, throw the shows, bring the performers. No one can tell us no. And that's what we did. And we made it a point to allow any king who wanted to, whether you've never performed or you've been performing for years, has the opportunity to perform. We didn't turn anyone away. And my troupe formed out of that from different women. I'm like, there's a lot of white troops. There's a lot of troops with like maybe one black king, all the rest are like white, or one Latina king, or one, like there was just never like anything here in Central PA. So, I mean, not Central because, actually no, not even in Central PA, because when I was going into Philly, it was still the same problem. So, got a few of my other friends together, and we became a drag king troupe, traveled around, performed here, Pittsburgh, Philly, DC, Baltimore, anywhere. We just traveled around, performed, was really taken in. So that's one of the things I'm affiliated with. I did a magazine. My wife and I, we did that for approximately 3 years, I guess. Just gets hard because print is very hard to keep up and going in the magazine. Digital, we're trying to figure out if we want to take another route. So we did that for a while. What else am I? Well, I kind of think that's it. Am I missing anything? Oh, how could I forget that? In the what?
You never gave the name of the troupe.
Oh, sorry, my drag king troupe. I forgot. Anyway, it was called House of Game. Just figured that was kind of catchy. And myself and a friend of mine, a good friend of mine's, there was a female football team here, was having some problems, struggling. The owner basically took flight, left the team hanging, no money, no anything. I went into a friend of mine's who would kind of knew business stuff and used to promote bands and things like that, and asked her if she could help with this football team. We decided to buy the team. We ended up buying the team from the National Women's Football Association. And so we had a team here called the Vipers, Central Pennsylvania Vipers. We did that for a few years. Found that it was very hard to get a lot of support from the area to keep the team afloat. You know, it's very, very expensive to run a football team because we're traveling across from basically here. We could go as far as South Carolina and as far as Maine. So we're trying to get all that together, and the girls would get sponsorships. But it's really hard to get people to support in this area. It was women's full contact, just straight up, same as the men's football, except for it was women. It's the only difference. So we did that, and we had to let it go because it was just real taxing and just too much after a while. But we did that for a while, which was kind of fun. So.
And can you talk about sort of the drag king troupe, what sort of act you did?
We did anything. Like there was no limits. I mean, there was not much we wouldn't do. We did anything from R&B to rock to rap. whatever we thought we liked, we would do.
So there's all sort of different characters and things like that.
Yeah, we didn't so much get into the whole dressing like the people in the song. Like we might have some aspect of it. Like, you know, I might have on, I don't know, a low chain if I was doing somebody that had a low chain, but I wouldn't like try to get their whole look. And the same with us, we would just put our own thing into it. We just brought ourselves, just had their music with us. We make up our own dance routine, our own steps. We might infuse a little stepping from, say, one of the frats that we saw mixed with a move from another group back in the day that we seen, and just infuse it all together and come up with what we were going to do.
That's so interesting to think of the politics that might go into reinterpreting sort of a frat's routine.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's hard to do, but if you look at a lot of steps now, it's all mixed up. If you just really look at like a lot of the dance steps, you have like you might have Michael Jackson, you might have James Brown, you might have like just put together. We just added a little bit of the stepping to it without taking the frats moves. You know, we might see something like, oh, we like that they did this hand motion. We might take that, and we might see somebody else like, oh, we like the way they did a dip. So we might go dip, and then do a hand. You know,
Yeah.
that's how we would do it.
And then in sort of the greater drag king community in Central PA, what made you feel like that there wasn't really a space for you and that you needed to make your own space?
One, not being able to even start to perform when I wanted to. Two, when I finally did get in, I didn't see many other people who looked like me. If I had to say, if I seen 15 kings, maybe one was of color. And I'm just like, wow, because there's so many of us around, and I'm just like, well, where are they? And then when you, like I said, when you start talking, and I'm just like, it doesn't seem like, I don't know, like I'm as welcome as I'd like to be, until the crowd liked me, the audience liked me, because it's the club owners that decide whether or not you're going to perform, whether you can make it, unless you do as we did and take over the club and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to throw a show at your club. They basically are like, they get the money for the most part. People thought we were, that's the crazy part. People thought that we were making out. They're like, oh my goodness, you guys have got to be making so much money, because we would pack the clubs. Like it was, I guess originally it was Beatles, but when we started doing it, it was Pink Lizard. We were up there, and I'll never forget, the owner came to us after our first show and said, I've never seen so many black lesbians. Where did they come from? What were you giving them to come out for? You didn't give them anything to come out for. They hear, what? Black King? Oh, I got to see what this is. I've never seen that here. Like a whole group of them? You mean a whole show? Like, and granted, we had white kings, Latina kings, but it was, the majority were black or, you know, mixed or something. So they would come out in drones. We would have at least 250 in a club, 250 people. And people basically, you know, everybody's all excited at first, and then people's minds go and start counting like 250 of us. If we all paid a $10 admission, and oh my goodness, they have to be making out. We weren't making that money. And shortly after, I think we did a couple shows there. It switched over to Liquid. And while the transition was happening, we started doing some shows at Stallions. And the women's bar was too small. I mean, we still got a lot of people, but it was just small, it was crowded, it was hard to do. But we had all the crowd, and the owners of Liquid asked us if we would bring our show to their club, because they didn't have anyone. Like, they had opened up, and they weren't getting a crowd. They couldn't pull the crowd in. We said, fine. We come up with it. This time we're like, let's do a contract. You know what I mean? We're working hard for this. Plus we pay our kings. Not a lot, but we pay a decent amount. We pay our headliners a lot because they're traveling. We bring headliners in from North Carolina, D.C., New York, everywhere. We had hit a headliner every show, and we're paying for like travel, some lodging, travel, lodging, and then just for them to perform because everyone wants to feel like they're worth something. Nobody wants to just keep doing stuff for free and spending all this money. So we did that. We came up with a contract, and the owners began to do other things like tell us, oh, well, only this amount of people came. And I'm like, no, I actually counted. Like, I counted. I know. I just stopped. And then we were capped out at a certain amount. Like, we made a certain amount. That was the end. And then they made all the rest. So I would count. Once I get to our cap, I'm like, cool, no problem. But then by the end of the night, the count would come in and would be well under the cap. And I'm like, wow. So there's nights where we're paying out and we've literally gone to the ATM and pulled money out of our business accounts, our Stud Magazine account, to finish paying people because we didn't make enough from the door. Mm-hmm. Because, we didn't have that many people come in. So after a while, we just stopped. We were like, it's becoming too much. Like, it's crazy. The industry, I'm like, wow. So we backed out of it and started just doing shows everywhere else. And up here, another reason that we didn't feel so welcome is because even though we're running a magazine, we have like one of the top troops now, even going to say like all black kings, we have like one of the top troops in the area that people really like or are enjoying who's performing. We never once got asked to Pride here, to perform, to do anything. I called. Now once I'm like, why are we not accepted? But then I'd see other troops and maybe I'd see 2 black people out of all the performers, 2 black kings. I'm like, really? I'm like, so interesting, like how this works around here, And then that doesn't make you feel very welcome. So, and we used to vend there too. We paid to vend, to be vendors there. Still never asked. Finally, we get a call from Pittsburgh Black Pride, who actually asked us to not only come to Pittsburgh Black Pride with our troupe to perform, but also if the 2 of us, being as we're magazine owners, would judge one of their pageants. If we've been to take part in everything. They call us for everything. I'm like, that's so, like, we've been here for all these years, doing all we have, and they won't get us yet. We're getting calls from Pittsburgh. We've been in D.C. where people have been open to us. I'm like, it's just a very interesting scene. And no sooner we left, it kind of went back to the way it was. You had a few more black kings performing, which was a few of them who were in my troupe and things of that sort, but that's it.
So could you tell me your birth date?
March 15th, 1976. I am a Pisces. Nice.
And then could you tell me the original name of the pink lizard?
I think it was Beatles. And I think that was like right when I got here in 98 in Harrisburg. And I think right in 98 is when she was switching over, either 98, 99. She was switching over because I remember it because my mom came here to see me and she was hanging out with me at the Top of Stallions. Used to be Twin Peaks or Twins, something like that. And we were hanging out at the top and Marsha was passing out flyers. And my mom said something slick to Marsha when she was passing out the flyers. That's how I could remember the dates. And I was like, Mom, seriously, stop.
And so who were the sort of founding members in your troupe?
The original members of the troupe were Misty, who goes by, her name's Misty Brown, goes by Big Daddy. But she's the smallest one in the troupe. She's like 5'2". Then you have Rhoda Bird, who would go by Chocolate, really smooth, dark complected drag king. You had Reese, Mauricia Radford, who went by Silk because she just thought she was just too smooth for everyone. And you had, let me see, we got Bird, Misty, Reese. Oh, and then we had one other member, Jackie, went by Panama Jack, I believe. It was Panama Jack. Yeah. Yeah, Panama. She went by Panama Jack. And me. And that's us right here. We're just, that would be Bird. Let me see. Bird, Reese, Misty, me, and Jackie, which became the Studs Magazine logo, or silhouettes to show. Because we wanted to do something like, is it girls? You guys really not sure what it is. You know, so after that, yeah, we did that, and we did calendars and started highlighting other masculine identified women. So we were thinking, like, when you look at a calendar, you see one of two things: really sexy women, like, you know, on nice build, or really built men. Like, there's no in between. Like, what about the masculine identified women? Like, what about us? We're cute, we're sexy, we want to be highlighted. So I went around and I put out a this is when MySpace was still big. So threw a link out on MySpace, started getting all these responses. It was just crazy. Like, people were just coming left and right that they wanted to be in the calendar. So we decided that we would we'd make a calendar like each year and highlight different people. And it worked out well. So we liked it. I don't know if I said why I ever started the magazine. One of the reasons I started is because I like what people would say, and I it's really weird because I don't like the form where people like guy clothes, girl clothes, but what everyone would say is guy clothes is what I would like. I just felt like they were clothes that I liked on me. Just most times I'd have to look at a guy magazine to find them, like GQ, things like that, and to just see like the stuff that I like. I don't know, stuff about cars, stuff about whatever. So I was like, I like to look at a magazine where I see more people like me. And I was having a talk with a friend of mine's then, now my wife, whom I married in 2007. So I was talking to her, and she's like, you know, that sounds like a good idea. If you ever want to make it happen, talk to me. We should sit down and have a business meeting. And I did, and we decided that we'd do that. So upon starting this magazine, we realized that there were actual women out there, masculine identified women, who were starting their own clothing lines for the same reason. So then we ended up with a whole, like, basically, if you look at any magazine, how they might have like a fashion issue or like this little blurb in it, like do's and don'ts, or what's the hottest thing that's out. We had the same thing, but it was actually masculine identified women who had made the clothing, and they would kind of make it like unisex, like they were like, this is for whoever. You didn't have to go like to a men's section to buy it. You just order it and it's yours. And just amazing at how many people were out there. One of the first people to take a chance on us, and I always have to say it, is because it's hard to give something to people when you don't know who they are. Like, we're just starting this magazine. We started on a borrowed laptop and a credit card. That's all we had. And we designed it, went and charged a printer, made our first magazine ourselves, which, well, one of the first ones, and just had it bound. That's why it was bound. And because we were just trying to figure out something to make. We printed ourselves and bind it. And then we moved into finding other ways to do it, you know. So anyway, called her and was like, listen, I have this magazine that's coming out. We're putting a fashion issue in it. We'd like to highlight you. I see that, you know, you're doing the clothing and whatnot. And she was married. She's like, I talked to my wife. She's like, you know, don't do it. Somebody before said they were going to do a magazine. I sent them stuff. They didn't do it. She's like, I feel like I have a really good feeling with you. I'm going to send you stuff. So she sent me like a box of T-shirts, hats, everything. It was Studville Clothing out of Atlanta. Melissa Bowles was her name, the owner of it. And she took that chance and people took to it. To this day, I still, if I wear one of her logo shirts, I have people asking me where I got it from. It was half gray. It's like a check mark, and it's half gray. And then the other side is like the colors of the rainbow. And the gray was for just neutral and everybody. And then there's the rainbow colors. And to this day, I still have people who ask me. It kind of looks like a V. It's great. So I did that. And upon that, more people started coming in and sending me stuff to do it. So we're figuring out how are we going to give them the best for their money. Like they're sending us, they're taking from inventory. We know it's hard. You know, you're not out there. So we added a fashion edition to our magazine releases. We already had it in a magazine, but every time we did it, we would release quarterly a magazine. When we do our quarterly releases, we throw a big release show. We actually have thrown one in Pittsburgh as well, but we've thrown a big release show, and what we would do is, as a part of the Drag Kings performing, we started having a couple of females perform, like feminine females perform, and then we'd have in between a fashion show, kind of like Rip the Runway, and we have the models model that magazine's clothing designer's clothing line, and we give out their information. Pretty cool. And we started finding people wanted to see it more, so we started recording it, which is the DVD that we're going to actually give to you all, which is right here. So we're going to donate that to you guys. So it's one of the DVDs, but it's one that you can look at. See, it's kind of fun. It's a show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and speaking from sort of my own personal experience, I know how much anxiety can go into going into a store, shopping in many different sections, with many being in different sizes,
Yes.
different sections of different stores. So it's so great that you make it through the mail or something like that, because it's so difficult for some people to find the clothes they want.
It is. I found that out, and people were just, you get happy when you find something, you're like, oh, this is just what I want. Like, you may see something in the women's section you like, that you just like the way it might be cut. You're like, oh, those pants might fit a little better for whatever reason. Or you might see something in the men's section, be like, oh, that might fit. But why should you have to worry about being like, oh, these are girls' jeans, or oh, these are guys' jeans if you're a girl? You know, why?
Yeah.
Why can't you just buy the clothes because you like the way they fit? And that's what they've done.
And then like the environment of the store, everyone watching you.
And especially if you got to try it on.
Yeah.
And I think that is harder for males if they're trying to try on, you know, something that is in the female section as opposed to a female who's trying on something in the male section. As opposed to, the only time I find it is like really weird when I go in and try to get like a suit and ties, and they're like, this for your husband? I'm like, no, it's for me. For me. So I do. So I do appreciate them. I wish there were more people out there. I wish stores are just kind of becoming kind of neutral. Just clothes. Just put them all. This is what it is. Does it fit you? Do you like the way it fits? Buy it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So then, how do you think your sort of LGBTQ identity and issues sort of influence family, social, religious, civil and political, spiritual aspects of life?
I think family-wise, it's just as more generations in my family come up, I think they get to see more of the freedom in it. Like I said, I've always had, you know, the gay cousin, but now with me and being married, they get to see like, wow, it's like a whole life. Now, I don't think any of us quite understood that growing up, but now I get to look at my nieces growing up, and it's just the norm for them now. Like, it's not that big of a deal. They're like, oh, you know, they ask a couple times, they're like, oh, so you guys are married. Then it comes to a point where and I know it's affected them, because my niece at one point says to my mom, my niece was probably about 5 at the time, was like, oh, when I grow up, I'm gonna get a girlfriend. Just out of clear blue. Mom's like, okay, your choice. Like, you can have whoever you want. And I'm like, I don't think that could happen if you just can't see the normalcy of it. It's like, yeah, I had a gay cousin, but the normalcy I seen was a guy and a girl together. Now they're seeing, and then our friends hang around us a lot. They hang around everybody, all my family, and they're like, this is normal. Whatever you're attracted to is normal, whether you're attracted to the same sex or the opposite sex or both. It's normal. So I think that's how it affects that. Political views, I look at their agenda. If they don't have my agenda in mind, meaning LGBT, QIA, black, and women rights, I can't. I have to look at all of that as a whole. Can't just take out one and the other. They all have to be together. It has to be. So that's for my political. What's the other ones?
Social, religious, spiritual.
Spiritual. I find myself saying I'm more spiritual than I am religious. You know, where I used to be like, oh, now I'm very spiritual. I believe in God. I have a connection to God. All of that stuff. I'm just not very religious because from what I've seen is the way people are using religion to further their agenda and not for the purpose in which it should be used or not for the good. And I'm just not okay with that. So I find myself being spiritual and looking for a spiritual home that can help me with that can give me a good message and not tell me you're going to hell. You know, so it's things like that. It kind of guides everything I do. Socially, I tend to lead more to people who are LGBTQ and A, you know, so I like people who are all inclusive. Before I could hang around people who liked gays, who didn't like gays, who, you know, prior to me realizing it, now I can't. If you're not all inclusive, then I really would prefer not to be around you. I can tolerate you and deal with you if I have to in my life because everybody has their opinions. So I could tolerate you doing it, but I don't want you in my inner social circle. I think that's pretty much it. It kind of guides me. It's not the end all be all because it may sound weird, but I'm black first, and I say that in an aspect because when you see me my skin color first. Then you go into everything else I am. You know, you're first like black woman, lesbian. That tends to be how it goes. Woman doesn't even come first. Like it's black woman, lesbian. So I'm guided by all of those things, and I'm always looking for how can I do more for the community? How can I help the community? How, you know, what is there I could do? Like my biggest thing that I want to do at some point when I'm able to, and I'm trying to get there, is open a home for displaced LGBTQI teens. Because there's so many, and I just doing a magazine and seeing different people and stuff like that, I'm like, my heart, I just so want to do that, like a safe space. Like you don't have to be out there, you don't have to be on the streets, just to know that there is a safe place for you. And then a second funnier for me part, but it has a little funny there. There's a lot of younger lesbians who are being mentored by videos and TV. Like they may not be around other lesbians, or especially I'm talking masculine identified, those ones who feel like they're masculine identified. They may not be around like other masculine identified lesbians. So they then find themselves drawn to males in videos, and it's so strange because I'm looking at them, I'm just like, there's so much more to it. So I'd like to have like a grooming school, like basically, yeah, no, you don't wear Timbs and jeans to an interview because you're a masculine identified woman. Yeah, like if this is where you feel this is what you need to do. So I want to actually have a school that's just like where it just grooms you into it, how to tie a tie, because you have so many that may not have fathers around them or men. So as opposed to trying, they stick to t-shirts, jeans. They won't put that dress to them. So I like to do things like that and just say, this is what you do. This is how you do it. This is a proper way to dress. This is not a proper way to dress. There's different things for different situations. So those are two big things that I want to do.
Yeah. And then also with that, because everyone's on the internet right now, you could definitely make that sort of an electronic thing as well.
Yeah, I thought about that. I could do that. I just kind of want some hands-on too. It's just something about being personal. It is today, like everything's electronic, and I think that's one of the things. Is like we have no one-on-one, face-to-face time, where you could get it like all day. You could tell somebody, this is what you do, because we had tips in our magazine for stuff like that. But to have someone there, like you can go on a website and find out how to tie a tie, but to have someone there and tie a tie for you and show you, there's a whole nother experience with that, and that's what I want to give people the experience they didn't have. You know, most people don't bring their little girls up learning how to tie a tie, because that's what a boy does. But what if that is your daughter? What do you do? So I'd like to do that.
Can you talk a little more about sort of your like religious background and development?
Grew up Baptist. Stayed at the Baptist church for the majority of my life. As I got older, I went into a Church of God in Christ. Stayed there until I felt like I was going to go to hell, and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. Like I was literally losing my, I was losing my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, like I was going so crazy with everything. I was like, I can't watch this, that's lust. I can't think of that, that's lust. I can't eat too much of that, that's gluttony. I can't, like I almost lasted to the point where there was a period in my life where I only watched the Disney Channel. It was the only thing I could find that didn't have some aspect that was going to make me go to hell. So I had to, so then from there I went to no religion at all. I was like, screw it. I'm not going to do any. And it seems like once I realized I was gay and I started meeting more people and looking into different spiritual things, that I realized, wait a minute, that's not true. You just need to have a relationship with God and things of those sorts. So from that point on, I just consider myself spiritual, and I actually go to whatever church I feel that I'm led to. I might go to a different church every week. You know, my wife and I, we say we church hop. We hop to churches. We might find one. We might stay there for a few months. We're like, oh my goodness, we really like this. Then all of a sudden we may get a feeling like, we're not feeling too great, so we'll hop somewhere else. And we'll keep hopping until we find that church where we decide that we actually want to be members. So that's where I'm at right now. I think the last few times I've been to church, I've been to a Brethren in Christ church, whom I looked up all of their how they feel about LGBTQ and homosexuality. And it's the general stuff that every other church says. You know, it says in the Bible homosexuality is a sin. However, we at the Brethren Church believe that we do not have the right to judge. And that was a big deal for me. We believe we should be open and invite all people to the Lord. And I've gone here a few times and I've liked it. So, but next week I might be at St. Michael's. I don't know. I don't claim anything. I just say I'm spiritual. I don't really foresee myself at a Catholic church. I don't know though. I don't think I'd be perceived well, because I have to dummy down my dress. Because I find that, like friends of mine, for instance, they invite us to a Baptist, I think it was a Baptist church. I can't remember. We're going to say it was a all-black church, and I generally wear a button-up tie, and I felt myself like, oh, don't put on a tie. That might go over too far, you know. You're going to walk in the door, people are going to have a whole fit that you got on the tie. And I'm like, if I have to do that much before going to worship God, that's a problem. Like, my concentration should not be on whether or not I put on a tab because everyone's going to judge me. It should just be on, I hope the sermon is good. Gonna have a good sermon today, you know. But it's not. It's so much on the people that I can't do it. I'm like, I can't be somewhere where all day I'm sitting in church thinking about people staring at me and judging me. So.
So can you talk sort of in your awareness of and engagement with the LGBTQ community, socially, politically, civil rights in Central PA or the world outside?
With my awareness of it?
Yeah, just awareness, involvement, things like that.
Well, I'm always involved because my wife tends to be on every single like board, committee, anything. So if she's interested, I have to find out what's going on. So I'm interested. So generally, it's just I can't even think of anything we're not like. I'm really sitting here trying to think. I can't think of anything we're not a part of. Like, I'm really trying to think. Like, so much stuff. I'm at a loss. It's just like, if it's about someone's rights or avocation, and we can be there, we're there. We're there. Simple as that. That's the best I can put it. It's simply there. If it's a good cause, we're there. If the center is in need of something and we have it, we give it. You know, whether it be time, items, money, we'll do it.
So do you know any sort of important events or turning points in your life?
Important events? Well, when I was kissed by a woman and realized I was a lesbian, that was kind of important for me. When I realized that I'd have to leave the military simply because I liked women. And that was heartbreaking for me because I thought that that's where I was going to be. Like, I never thought that I would not be a part of the military. Well, even though it was reserve, I volunteered most of my time active and would do medical support for field troops just because I enjoyed the environment. So that was a big turning point that I won't be able to do that anymore. When I met my wife, when I married her, it's a turning point because that solidified, like, you're married to a woman, you are definitely a lesbian. Like, you know, but now you know, and everyone will know because, like, it's no longer like when you're in a relationship, you can say anything, you know, like, oh, my partner, you know. So it's just like to get into the wife mode, like, there's nowhere else you're going with that. My wife. You know, you're not gonna be like, I wonder if she means wife as in wife. Like, it's not, you know. You say, like, oh, that's my partner. I wonder if she's talking about a business partner. I wonder if, you know, that's gone. So that was a turning point. Realizing, like, you actually did it. Like, you took that step. I was comfortable with me, but it's just like, wow, like, it starts making you think, like, because I do home care. So, you know, people say, are you married? I would say, no. Could be end of the discussion. You know, you don't have to go any further. You say yes. Now they're like, oh, so what does your husband do? Well, my wife, you know. So it's like a lot you think about. So that's like a huge turning point when I really thought about it. I'm like, oh man, you're getting married. Like, it's just out there. Like, even though I'm out where everyone knows me, you know, it's really out there. The start of my drag king troupe, definitely a change. It was probably the first inclusive brotherhood with other masculine identified women. It was like a true, like, brotherhood. I was like, this is great. You know, everybody's like me. We're all the same. So that was a big turning point to have that camaraderie. when I helped produce my wife's CD. That was a big changing point, especially because her CD had a lot of stuff about women loving women in it, so that was pretty cool, and like it's out there in the world. And I think that's pretty much the biggest turning points for me. The biggest things in my life that stick out.
Yeah. Is that a CD vocals or
It
poetry?
poetry, but it's all original beats.
Oh, okay.
There's no samples of anything. We actually had had someone make the beats, and a lot of times we could be in the studio and we might get on the keyboard and the bass and do it right then and there. So that was a fun experience. Yeah. Oh, and when I placed in a stud pageant, I came in. What was it? Third. I came in the third place in the National Nubian Stud and Film Pageant, which was cool.
And then, sort of, what changes have you seen, sort of within the LGBT community, or maybe the greater world, in terms of acceptance or celebration, and sort of acceptance is such a passive word. What sort of challenges do you think remain as well?
The challenge is the racial line is still, and what I've seen, especially over the last few weeks with GSA Summit and just listening to a lot of speakers and people speak, is that I'm finding that there's a lot of black homosexual people who have the same feelings that I have. It's like within the community, you almost have to give up some of your blackness to assimilate, and that's interesting. So I think that's a challenge that definitely needs to be passed. I think we just have to open it up and literally just be inclusive of everybody and everything. It's not just, oh, we're so inclusive because you're homosexual. You know, we need to include everything, and everybody needs to be comfortable. That's a challenge. The changes I've seen is, well, look at all the states that are getting marriage equality. That's exciting. Military is now open. You serve openly. More and more people are just seeing it as normal. And those are the changes I've seen that have impacted me a lot, that they've really impacted me. Because I'm like, to think like just, I'll say 10 years ago, you wouldn't even have been in Pennsylvania. You wouldn't have health insurance together. You wouldn't be married. You wouldn't, people would still be, more people would still look at you as something being wrong with you. Take it further back when you're looking at where people used to try to shock the gay out of people. Look how far we've come. That's huge. That's huge. I think the Exodus program is still a challenge. Like, stop. They're homosexual. Let them be. It's basically is teaching people or helping people through their homosexuality to not be homosexual.
So
That's what I mean by that.
therapy?
Yes. Like, no, you're not gay. This is what you need to do. That's a challenge I think needs to go. Let me see. Is there any other changes that are huge? I mean, there's a lot, but these are the ones that I really wake up and smile about every day. The fact that there's some parts of Pennsylvania that are now protected from firing people for being gay. Not all. Challenges is it needs to just go across the board. It needs to be a federal law. That's a challenge. The change is that it's starting to. So I'm excited about that. I think those are the big ones for me.
can you talk about sort of the effect your godchildren have had on your life?
Oh, I have one goddaughter, and people are gonna talk about me for this, but it made me realize that like I always wanted a little boy. I ended up with a goddaughter, but she's so great. Like it made me think like, oh, because everybody talks about me like, if you have a girl, you're just gonna like, what are you gonna do? There's nothing you're gonna do with her. Like, and I'm like, no. And I would talk to my wife. I'd be like, well, if we have a girl, I mean, I'm gonna be her parent still, but you do all that other stuff with her. Like if she likes dolls, you play with dolls. I'm like, however, I'm gonna introduce her to all the other stuff, footballs and all that other stuff. And I'm like, now having a goddaughter, I just don't care. Like, I just, whatever she wants to do, I don't care. I'm like, you want to do it? Let's do it. I don't really care. And I don't like being touched. I have a real aversion to people in my personal space or touching me. I don't really, not a big hugger, but my friends like to hug me because I'm not a big hugger. So it's like a big game for everyone to try to hug me. It's a terrible game. It's a terrible, terrible game. I just don't like anything on me. And having a goddaughter, and people in like when I'm with her, and say if my wife sees me, or even my goddaughter's mother, like, oh my goodness, you let her slobber on you. Do you see? Like it's a big, and I'm just like, yeah, who cares? Like it's hers. I don't care. I'll hold her up. I'm like, look at you, so dirty and snotty. I don't like. Yeah, I still love you anyway. I didn't, because I thought to myself like, when I have a kid, just gotta make sure to stay clean. Like, really clean. But I don't. And I think she's helped me with that. So, I think she's helping me to get over my touching aversion, because like, I constantly want to hug her and stuff like that. So I think it's helped me just a little bit. I still don't want to hug my friends too much, but it's helping me a little bit more to, I guess, kind of openly show emotions. That's what it is. I think to show PDA. Oh, and her name is Trinity. She's the cutest little thing ever. That's all I can say. She's so cute. She's 9 months.
And you kind of referenced earlier sort of the confluence of all the different aspects of your identity. So your black identity, your perceived as female identity, your lesbian identity, and sort of the prioritizing of that. So can you talk a little bit about sort of how those identities all converge into the being that is you?
Well, that's a good question. As far as like the blackness goes, it's who I am. I am that. I think with my masculinity, and it makes me, it's kind of hard being black and masculine sometimes, because of sometimes the black community can really have a problem with homosexuality. And I'm not saying everyone, I'm just saying that sometimes it does. And me being black and masculine just adds to it, because then it gets to, oh, you're trying to be a guy. Oh, you want to be a male. Oh, you want to be this. No, I'm just who I am. I'm just masculine, which makes it what I am. And years ago, my like I said, was my friend then, but not my wife. She used to say, "You're so handsomely beautiful," and I'm like, that's like the best thing ever. Like she'd say, "Handsomely beautiful," and I'm like, because I am still physically a female. I might not like to be called he, she, and things like that. She, her. It's because it's weird for me, because I have that masculine aspect of me. But to add the handsome and beautiful is pretty much a cope, and it was so much so that I ended up making it the actual slogan for my magazine, "Handsomely Beautiful Women." because it's just huge and more people seeing it. So I think that's what it brings to me. It's just that one, I become a little guarded and I don't know what the reason is. Like I'm guarded one because I'm like, oh my goodness, is there going to be a problem because I'm black? Oh my goodness, is it going to be a problem because I'm masculine identified? Oh my goodness, is it going to be a problem because I'm a lesbian? So it's just, instead of just looking at one thing, like I'm looking at everything. Like, so it just, I don't know, it just makes me approach every situation I try to be open-minded, but at the same time, I still have that there in the back of my mind, no matter what. I think that's how it fits into me as a whole. Well, no, I'm very nice and friendly and loving, and so I just don't want to be touched. But other than that, I'm good.
And then, I'll get back to that. So can you kind of talk about sort of the sort of concept of your drag troupe and the community there, and sort of because usually within sort of drag communities they talk about a drag family. So how do you think that a concept of brotherhood and a family sort of played into that community?
I think with us all being masculine identified, you kind of wanted someone else who thought the same as you, felt the same as you, probably would have the same hurdles to get over as you. So that's one thing that brings us together. And then the same interests add to it, that when by the time the troupe formed, we had gotten to know each other, and then we just seemed to sort of become a family. Like, it's what we did, it's like so great. Like you start off like, yo, we're just going to be performing, but then you find yourself calling each other for other things. And of course, like troops or people do go ahead and they might distance and spread, but some people you remain friends with for a very long time and you build a bigger bond. So I think that's what within it we just became a family. It's just spending time with each other. Like, what do you want to do for the show? What are you going to do for the show? Then we would travel together to do it. Then we're in the same hotels. Then, so you kind of get thrown into it that you're like, yo, that's my bro, and it becomes, I guess, real. You start off with my drag brother, it's just my bro. Then that's just how it ends. Like, wow, it's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And then sort of, it's so important what you mentioned before about your wife referring to you as handsomely beautiful. Sort of the ways in which language can just all of a sudden click, and you finally find the right word to describe how you've been feeling for so long.
Yes.
Could you talk more about maybe sort of words that have had that impact on you, or what sort of feelings you get when something like that happens?
Well, let me see. Other than handsomely beautiful, because that was huge. Because like, man, that's it. That's me. Because there is a soft side, but that's it. Another one is stud. When I really started like researching, and we would do different workshops, I guess, and we were at IDKE, which is the International Drag King Extravaganza, and it's held in different cities, states each year. And we were in Ohio at one, and we were doing I think it was called How Do You Identify? As far as like the different words, that's your stud, butch, AG, all this. Well, when my wife was preparing for that, just looking at all the definitions of different things and really going into studs, just impact. I'm like, it really impacted me, and I'm like, I'm a stud. Whereas it's funny enough that when I first started talking to my wife, whose name is Shashawn, by the way, I can just call her Shashawn. When I started talking to Shashawn, and she was asking me basically about me, and I'm like, I consider myself a stud. And it was a turnoff for her. She was like, oh, stud. And she had this this whole perception of what a stud was. Studs don't like to be touched. Studs don't like to receive. Studs don't do this. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're more or less talking about like an AG. So going into that, that's like so in fact, I'm like, wow. Whereas we're talking now from that conversation to now, we're talking 8 years, and I'm like now saying I don't really like stud. Like I'll take it, like because I've done it. That's why I did Studs magazine. I'll take it, but I'm more going into a gender neutral. I'm like I don't want any of those anymore. So that's the way that's affected me now. Like I'm now transitioning out of the word stud for myself. It feels like changing my name. Like when I'm trying to introduce people to me as a new name, like no, I'm no longer being called Lindsay. I'm being called this. That's how it feels with transitioning from that word stud, because that was my brand as Studs magazine. I am Studs. I am, like now I'm transitioning. Like no, I'm really kind of just gender neutral, because I think the words have gotten watered down, and I'm sure maybe generations before me, by the time I came around, thought that we watered it down. So now I'm at that place where I'm like, this new generation's kind of just too much, and I just don't want any of it, So I think those ones, pretty much.
Can you talk about what sort of led you to have a realization of a more gender neutral identity?
Having roundtable discussions with, starting off with my troop brothers, my house brothers, and then with more people I met over the years, more masculine identified women who I've come in contact with, and we talk, and there's different things that each of us would have. Like one of us might talk about something like, oh, well, I don't mind doing this for my partner. And the other one's like, oh, no, I wouldn't do that. That's too feminine, or this, and that. And the more I kept thinking about it, I was like, I think I'm just gender neutral. Like, I don't want to be identified as a guy or a girl. I just want to be me. I don't want any expectations of, well, you consider yourself a stud, this is how you're supposed to be. You consider yourself an AG, this is how you're supposed to be. You're lesbian, this is how you should be. You're a woman, this is how you should be. I don't want it. I just want what I want when I want it, and that's what I want to be. So it just started coming up more and more. So I started thinking, the best thing I could say is I'm gender neutral. The more times you walk into a women's bathroom and a little girl, true story, me, a friend of mine's, and Shashawn and the friend's then girlfriend walk into a woman's bathroom in Walmart. Little girl's washing her hands. She steps back and says, "Ooh." We're all looking around like, what happened? We're like, what's wrong? She's like, boys aren't supposed to be in the girls' bathroom. We say, well, how many boys do you see? She points at me and my friend, one of my house brothers, you and you. I'm like, huh. We were like, oh, okay. And just kept on moving. And I'm just like, that's why I went gender neutral. No, I don't think. I think I've gotten it all.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I have.
And then if you think of any others that you think we should contact for an interview, just let us know.
Yeah, probably my
Your
troop.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely pass them on to the
Yeah, at least 3 of them. One's not here anymore in this area. She's alive, but she's not in this area. But I would say, yeah, Reese definite. Maurice, she's like 50 something, and has gone through it all, adult children and everything. So, and I'd say, and I'll give you the information. Another friend of mine's whom we keep having this conversation now because it's becoming a shock to everyone, whom is Tracy is 51 and 51, 52, and has always known she was a lesbian. Has never messed with a man. Ever. Has known. She was like, yeah, no. I like girls. Not dealing with guys. I'm like, I was like, I wish I knew that. So, I think she, oh, and she's a huge athlete here, like, broke records. Oh, yeah. Everything. And she's been with Amtrak for 20-something years now. I think she'd have some interesting stories. And she's from here.